Millions of Americans are looking forward to hosting Thanksgiving dinner, but inflation is becoming an unwelcome house guest, putting a strain on the festivities. And it's not just the rising cost of turkey and pie hurting family budgets. This week, the Consumer Price Index, which keeps track of what people are paying, jumped 6.2% from a year ago, marking the highest level since 1990.
It's a ripple effect, and that really puts a challenge as we go into the holiday season.
A CNBC survey shows inflation now ties with coronavirus as the biggest concern facing Americans, and it's punching the president politically. Republicans were hitting the president hard even before this week's report showed inflation heading even higher.
We have the raging inflation, as bad, some would argue, as back in the late 70s, early 80s.
It's a direct result, he says, of flooding the country with money through President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan earlier this year. The president says the infrastructure plan passed this week will help alleviate bottlenecks in the supply chain.
And thanks to those steps we're taking, very soon we're going to see the supply chain start catching up with demand.
But critics say the president's policies are the problem, like cutting back on the U.S. supply of fuel.
He shuts down American pipelines but allows Putin to have his own pipeline.
Today, a gallon of regular costs $3.41, up more than $1 from a year ago. And as winter approaches, the Energy Department estimates heating bills will be up as much as 54%.
Going to be up there probably at least $500 more this year, so they should plan on that.
And while some blame the supply chain problems for inflation, others point out that Europe has those supply chain issues too, but without inflation. Instead, many point to government spending. Democratic economist Larry Summers warned in February that the Democrats' COVID relief plan could lead to inflation. He was blasted by the White House, which called inflation transitory. Now some economists say it could easily last another year. President Obama's top economic advisor, Jason Furman, says inflation is not slowing, it's maintaining a red-hot pace. And now, as the president and Democrats work to infuse nearly $2 trillion into the economy through his Build Back Better bill, they're facing more political roadblocks, as Senator Joe Manchin signals concerns new federal spending may make inflation worse. Americans do know the pain because even though salaries are up, prices are up even higher, which means people are falling behind. Some economists and business leaders are looking to the Federal Reserve to do more to slow inflation, but that could mean multiple hikes in interest rates, which could hurt the economy. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Well, those projected multiple hikes in interest rates will absolutely hurt the economy. That will change every variable rate interest loan there is. It will absolutely impact the housing market because it will make it more expensive to pay a monthly payment for a house. So we're looking at rising inflation, and it looks like it's here. The administration just this past summer was saying this is transitory, it's going to be over soon. They keep talking about supply chain, but they're not talking about the stimulus packages and how printing money always leads to inflation. That's been in every single economy since there was money. So when you're printing this amount of money under this new money theory, they seem to conveniently ignore, well, that's going to put inflationary pressure on everything. The stimulus packages have actually encouraged people to stay home. They haven't encouraged work, industry, savings, all of those things. And it's this huge demand that's been pumped up because the government is printing money. So instead of Build Back Better, what we're doing is building inflation. If you think Build Back Better is some kind of new political slogan, here's what former President Bill Clinton said after he was appointed special United Nations envoy for Haiti back in 2009.
The second part of our mandate is to ensure the recovery effort has the assistance with the level of commitment we had when I did this work for the UN in the tsunami-affected areas. Our goal is to build back better. Better schools, hospitals, and housing, better public facilities and infrastructure, and much more effective disaster prevention and mitigation.
Well, the plan back in 2009 was to build back better and to assist in the recovery effort. Haiti had had this massive earthquake, and how do we build back roads? How do we build back infrastructure? How do we build back hospitals, schools? How do we build back a nation? And the answer was, well, we need more spending. The UN threw money at it. The Clinton Foundation raised a lot of money for it. But here we are 12 years later, and our first story today was all about kidnapping gangs in Haiti, how lawlessness is now everywhere. The economy is essentially non-existent. Employment is essentially non-existent. And so we can see Build Back Better didn't build back anything. So why do we think it's going to work here in the United States? What do we need to be focused on? And for me, we need to be focused on how do we build better families. Those are the fundamental building blocks of every successful culture in the history of the world. When you get away from family, when you get away from stable families generationally, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when you lose that generational continuity, you've essentially lost everything. Haiti is a prime example. The Dominican Republic, right next door, it didn't get a Build Back Better program, and today it's a whole lot better than Haiti.